everybody. It is the first Monday of November. So that means it's time for Mike to open his big maw and talk to all you. So welcome to the November episode of the Maw of Mike. As always, I am your host, Michael Curtis, the Director of Product Development here at Goodman Games for all things DCC and DCC adjunct, such like X Crawl Classics and M Mutant Crawl Classics, and I don't know, there's probably a couple other Crawl Classics which I'm overlooking at this point. But this is the show that discusses what's happening in DCC land in the coming months. So if this is your first time tuning into the show, thank you very much. And I hope it won't be too confusing because tonight I'm going to be talking about a lot of DCC stuff which isn't from Goodman Games. Surprise, surprise! Because we have an awesome community of third-party creative people who have been helping support Dungeon Crawl Classics since the beginning. Literally, in some case, one of my guests here tonight. So we're going to give a chance to introduce their products and what all these cool people are making to you, and hopefully, get you some cool stuff. And maybe put a little ducats, a little bit of dead presidents, a little bit of money in their pocket on the side. That's how capitalism works, from what I understand. But before we get there, and speaking of capitalism, there is something that I wanted to bring to your attention. You probably have seen repetitive ads about this on Facebook and other social media. But right now, as we speak, literally, we have something on BackerKit. Goodman Games is funding a new project, which is something old, something new, and it is something called Grimtooth's Old School Traps. And if you are unfamiliar with Grimtooth, you obviously have not been watching the Twitch channel lately because there has been a lot of Grimtooth. But Grimtooth Old School Traps is exactly what it sounds like. It is a collection of traps to place in your dungeon or your tomb or any other place where you want to challenge players. The original Grimtooth traps came back in the 80s, but times have changed, and originally it was kind of system neutral to the point where it had no mechanics whatsoever. We are now publishing it for mechanics for both DCC and for 5th edition. So if you want quickly, I need a teeter-totter trap that will imprison people and then drop a slab on them, or really nasty pit traps or lots of other stuff. That is going on right now, and that is on BackerKit. And I see that Elena has already posted a link in the chat. So BackerKit, not Kickstarter, and there's a couple of reasons for that. And once you start seeing on BackerKit, you'll be like, some people said, "Wow, like this is really intuitive," and we've got lots of interesting stuff going on. So we are currently at $140,000. We have long past funded. In fact, I think we funded in the first 30 minutes, perhaps even less. And we are now, as of tonight, we are 4 stretch goals in. So it's going to be on top of the 150 traps, which are already going to be in the book. We are now up to 154. So the traps range from the minor annoyances, which will still probably kill a 0 level character if you're using them for a funnel, to the dreaded 5 skull, which is damn near likely to kill just about anybody. But hopefully, if you start running into a 5 skull trap, you will have at least 1 cleric. So that's it. So anyway, so this is, and if you're not all into traps, there's got 2 other things which are going to be available along with it. There is going to be two adventures. One of them is called Against the Thieves Guild, and that is what it says on the tin. You are basically going to be running the gauntlet against the Thieves Guild, trying to work your way through their nefarious traps. And that one is going to be published for both Dungeon Crawl Classics and for 5th edition. And something that I like to talk about, there is going to be a new DCC only, because it's a 0 level funnel, and that is called Trials of the Trapmaster, and the Trials of the Trapmaster Tomb. And so we haven't really done a kind of trap heavy 0 level funnel, and in retrospect, we're like, why not? That seems like the perfect way, because it's not only is it going to wreck you, but it also gives you interesting ways to use all those livestock and wheelbarrows and 10-foot poles and whatever else that you might end up as your 0 level farmer, 0 level gung farmer. So it makes perfect sense. That one is going to be has been written and is currently being play tested by Mr. Terry Olson. And if you've ever played one of the DCC funnels at Gen Con over the last couple of years, you are undoubtedly aware of how nefarious Terry can be. So it's going to be a good one. So yeah. So that is currently what's going on now. So don't check it out now, but if you haven't checked it out after the show, go over there. Or if you're watching this in not real time. If you're watching this recorded on Twitch or YouTube, you can pause, go check it out, pledge, and then come back here. I promise I will be here. Speaking of being here, I'm going to take a step out for a little while, make sure that there's no orcs out in the hallway, and I'm going to come back with my first guest tonight in just a few moments. All right, so stick around, get yourself quick. You can run the refrigerator, grab something to drink. You have 20 seconds. All right, back in a sec. Hey everybody, welcome. I am back and I have brought somebody with me, as you can tell. My first guest tonight is Jordy Williams. And Jordy, you're on the show to talk about this is your debut product from is this correct? I thought this is your first thing. So,
It is. Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what you are bringing to the Goodman Games DCC community. All right.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about it. It's called, this is Salam issue 1, The Spike of Dosku. It is kind of a setting starter pack kind of concept, so it's an overview of a setting with brief history. I'm keeping it brief. 3 classes. In the setting of Salam, we're sort of replacing the core book demi-humans with a new kind of different take on them. And then a funnel that introduces us to, the kind of the main meta plot, if there is one, of the setting. So yeah, that's the TLDR on it. You get new classes, a new funnel, all new original monsters, and some hijinks for your players to get up to.
Yeah, so this is a perfect example of what Dungeon Crawl Classics likes to do. We purposely have left things kind of wide open for people to to build upon. I've always said that the best campaign setting is the kind of the one you create yourself. But if you don't have time to do that, there's a plethora of stuff to choose from. And this one, as you said, there's parts of it are campaign setting. That part of there's kind of like what we might call the fluff, but there's also like the mechanics as well. As you said, we're introducing some new demi-human classes, and then you have a funnel on top of it. So this is kind of like the first step into your mind, into your own kind of creation on it. So. So kind of how did this come about? Did you just one day, say, hey, what's this new game, DCC? I'm gonna, write a zine, or was it a slightly prolonged process?
It's a slightly longer than that. I guess my like getting into the hobby story quickly. I didn't grow up with D&D at all, or RPGs in general. I grew up a small town in West Texas and just didn't have that kind of exposure really, besides like the scene in ET where they play it. I think that's the only thing I'd ever seen. I had a couple of touches with it as I was growing up. Some buddies in college played Pathfinder, and I just could not keep up. And then 5th edition came out, and I was like, oh, this is, supposedly easier. I played it for a while, and then it just wasn't totally my cup of tea. And I found DCC, and that was like, that was my gateway drug. There was this game that seemed structured enough, but also so easy to do what you want with it. And I've, a huge inspiration for me was Crawljammer.
Okay.
Just a huge inspiration for me, because it simultaneously gave you everything you needed if you just want to run a game, but it leaked out setting stuff that let you think bigger. And that was a huge deal for me. I heard a vague rumor on Reddit that it's coming back, and I'm excited if that's true.
I think it was on an episode of Keep Crawling. We talked about sci-fi, and we managed to get Tim Callahan to show up on the show for a little while, and basically Brendan and I leaned on him. And
I would love to also lean if Tim ever for some reason sees this. I don't know Tim, but your work was amazing, Tim. I love it. I still think fondly and think about going back to playing some more Crawljammer. So that kind of, opened my mind to like, oh, this is all doable. I can engage in this in a way that works for me. And the zine itself kind of started as a quarantine project, as I'm sure a lot of us can attest to that kind of thing. But the journey was sort of odd. It started out as like a very grimdark. I wanted to do sort of a Solomon Kane riff. And then as I was working on it, I sort of realized, like, man, I don't have anything interesting to say besides I really like this. And that didn't feel like enough. I think every project that I've seen from DCC that I love, the ones that really spark this community, are putting something extra. It's not just, Purple Planet isn't just Burroughs.
Mhm.
It's something else. It brings more out. And so I was like, I don't have anything more to say than, man, these Solomon Kane stories were pretty cool, right? So that didn't feel right. And so I really pivoted hard. And the thing that I come from is I didn't grow up with fantasy. I grew up a lot more with science fiction. Orson Scott Card and Clark were like my primary reading as a kid. And so I came to fantasy more as an adult, and therefore the tropes never quite are not as natural to me.
Mhm.
Salam is a lot of me questioning the tropes. That's why I replaced all the demi-humans.
Yeah.
I love the concept of like we have people who are dedicated to the stone, and then I was like, but why do they have to be little and drink beer? Like why? Why are we doing that?
Right.
And
So
could we go a different direction?
right. So actually, so yeah, this is introducing new stuff to it. So why don't you give us like the quick rundown of what the new races are in here to give people a kind of a tease on like what they're going to find in here. So I think people are very interested to hear about that.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I there are three replacement races. They don't perfectly slot in for the originals. I wanted to like sort of mix and match. To me, the idea was like put all that stuff in a blender and scoop out the best parts, plus a little of me and new mechanics. So they're the Slate, who are, if you want to just be reductive, they're stone elves. But they don't actually cast magic. They instead are sort of innately connected to a deity in the setting, and they have an electrical charge in their body. So they sort of actually form more of a warrior combination in that they have a charge die. They can either put that into attacking or defending with an electrical field. And they get some of the dwarf goodies like construction recognition, stuff like this. The Icaron are effectively my answer to halflings. They are communistic bat people. Uh, they're frugivores who really just want to chill, and but because of their appearance, they're sort of disgusting to normal people, and so they struggle a bit in the setting. And they have some different luck mechanics, and a little bit of thief thrown in for
Okay.
flavor. And then finally, the Lorf are sort of a dwarf slash druidic race. They are sort of visually like dwarves, but they live in the forest. They are physically part tree themselves. They have their own spell table that's separate and new with some little tweaks to it. And the best piece of trivia for the Lorf, their heart is literally a tree seed. And once you get to level 8 in DCC as a Lorf, you start rolling on a percentage. And at 8, 9, and 10, it is potential that the seed will actually burst and kill you because you have gained too much power and your body can't contain it.
All right. Well, that's certainly unique take on everything. It's a far cry from what Tolkien was writing. So but that's what we love doing with DCC. Is, we take those initial tropes and put a new turn on it. And it's very interesting that you not only did you get into gaming at kind of later on in life, but your influences are much different than kind of what DCC goes to, which is there is some overlap with science fiction stuff, with either Jack Williamson or Frederick Brown or that, but you were like hard sci-fi, Clark and Orson Scott Card and everything. So very interesting. I think there are people out there who are going to be interested in checking out on that alone. So that's pretty cool. Um,
Yeah, I hope so. I will say one appendix in sort of influence that is baked into this going to be baked into this series is Vance's Wizards.
mhm.
I mean, I don't think anything in the appendix in that I'm reading that I've done has fascinated me quite as much as those weirdos. And so, in the actual setting, the big, kind of driving force of a Salam campaign is the discovery of a series of spikes, which are effectively me creating wizard towers that go into the ground instead of up. But yeah, so every issue will explore like one weirdo who created one of these things that the players can go find out what's at the bottom, what's there.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah.
and hence the subtitle of Salam number one, the Spike of Dasku. Or so
Exactly.
that's going to be our first weirdo that we're going to explore. Now, is that tied into the funnel at all? Is that is
It
that
is. It's her funnel. Yeah, it's her. Well, yeah. The basic like front of the text is your characters are they're living in a country, Salam, that's in the midst of a civil war, and to flee it, as you are your town specifically is in the midst of it, and it's sort of burning to the ground around you, and you flee, and you find yourself underground in this strange place where gravity doesn't work the way it seems like it should, and there are strange things, and Dosku herself has sort of given you an avenue of escape if you can survive.
That's interesting. I like the start of that funnel idea because it does play with something that I've been thinking about for a couple of years now, and I've played around with various things. Is that the kind of the default funnel concept, which we put out a lot with DCC, is kind of like the call to adventure, like the Garn part, like they decide, like it's a voluntary choice, like we're going to go into that cave or that castle, and we're going to come back with treasure and become first level characters. This, in what you're describing, danger is foisted upon you. It's like you don't have a choice in this matter. It's it goes from being proactive to being reactive, and I like that. And I don't think there's been a lot of funnels with that, so that's very interesting. I think that's a very smart choice. So um so the so yeah so let me so obviously you're going to be continuing to build on Salam, as the seasons go. What's kind of what I mean, we were talking about like the spikes and the kind of like all that. Do you have kind of some plans of like maybe what's going to be in Salam number two, or you're already working on it, or is it?
Yes, Salam 2 is in draft. Dosku deals with a human druid who had a spike. Salam 2 is going to deal with a slate, who is a mage smith, basically, trying to imbue weapons and things with magical items, which are not common at all to Salam, as a general rule. And so it's going to be a bit more, talking about influences. I watched Touch of Zen this past year, which if you haven't, it's an excellent sort of proto wuxia
Hmm.
film, martial arts film, and it had that early on had a big influence in the slate in general. Just kind of an interesting idea to me. So these monk style people sort of living in their little area and being left alone and gaining great power from that solitude. And so that's kind of the Trials of Riao, the title for now. Well, it better be. I put it in issue one. So yeah. So it's going to be letting through the experience of going through that spike, the players learn a bit more about slates and their culture, their history, how these people work. I'm trying to do a lot of like, no one likes info dumps, so I'm trying to do a lot more of like learning the setting via the exploration. You're in a place created by these people. It's different than the other ones, that sort of thing.
Now, and I always have to ask you, so are you currently running a game set in here, or have you set in Salam,
Oh
or
yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, I've play tested the modules, and when I'm not play testing the modules, I've actually been running DCC on the Borderlands with all the classes and any of the like magical items that are being explored, and so I can see how these things work in the wild and how all that's working. And I'm hoping to run Salam Dosku at GaryCon this
Okay,
year,
good. That
and
that was
probably
gonna
Gen Con as well.
that was going to be my advice, is that that one of the best ways to get people excited about stuff is for the creator to run it. So I mean,
Yeah,
I still do that with stuff that I've written and everything, and people feel like they're getting it straight from the tap, rather than somebody else's interpretation of somebody else's work. So, and that's a
sure.
great way to get people excited about it. And and I hope people were going to be checking it out tonight. Well, maybe not tonight, but
I hope they will. And I the imprint is Wizards with Laser Rifles. You can email me if you, whether you buy the book or not. You can email me if you have anything cool to talk about. Wizards with Laser Rifles at gmail.com. I'm on Instagram under the same name. If you Google any of these proper nouns, you'll find me.
And people will be able to pick up a copy of that through the Goodman Games web store. We're going to be we're
Yes,
selling it.
sir.
We one of
Yes,
the
it's
reasons I've
live.
had
That
you
was the most exciting part of this process for me was dropping the zines off at Gamehole in
on.
Madison, where the book debuted. That's my home campaign. I say home. I live in Chicago, but it's my like favorite convention. And then seeing it on the Goodman in the newsletter and everything was a big deal. So
Yeah, and that I mean that's one of the things that makes it stand out too. This is a physical copy. It's not just a PDF or anything. So
that is
so
true.
if you like the physical thing, to be able to hold this in your hand, you will be able to get that through the Goodman Game Store. So, all right. Well, I think that does it for now. Hopefully, I
Yeah.
wish you the best of luck, and I hopefully get some people looking at Salam #1, and hopefully we'll cross paths at Gamehole or GaryCon or or Gen Con in 2024. So, all right.
Yep. That'd be
So,
great.
all right. So thank you very much for being on the show, Jordy. We're gonna cut to take a quick break, and I'll be back with my next guest. So stick around. Hey everybody, we are back, and joining me this time is Jeremy Father Goose, as he is known on certain social media channels, Schumann. And Jeremy, you are here to talk about a boatload of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I
First, I got to say I am also very excited about the new Grimtooth stuff. So I want to add to this pile.
well, hopefully we'll replace that pile somewhat. We've condensed like this really good stuff for the first two books into one, so you just carry that around. So yeah, so you are a third party creator, and
Hmm.
I see the back end. I get to see kind of what's coming on the web store,
Hmm.
every month, and there were a lot of folders. That's what I'm just saying. So I was going through, like, okay, all right, so let's start from the beginning. You were here to talk about Where Shadows Fall. So that's kind of like the starting point. So let's begin there. So what is Where Shadows Fall?
All right. Elena's got a picture she can put up, show you all of the stuff that's involved in that. But essentially, it's a new zine series for a modern fantasy horror approach to Dungeon Crawl Classics. So the same base mechanics you're familiar with, but applied to a different kind of setting. So moving away from the classic medieval-esque fantasy setting that we see in the base game and much of the expanded content, and moving it into a realm that a few people have explored already with different zines, but I wanted to take my turn playing with, and that's setting it in a modern world.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I got a chance to take a look through some of it. I didn't have
Mhm.
enough time. We've only set this up like a week ago, so I didn't have time to read through the entire corpus.
Right.
But I could see where some of the influences come from. And in fact, I like at the back of it, you call it a number of
Mm-hmm.
kind of older RPGs that I certainly recognize. Uh,
Yep.
One of them I know somebody who is tied with the Goodman Games crew certainly recognize.
Yes, indeed.
So I was thinking, I mean, I had my own impressions of like what kind of the inspiration for this was. So, but why don't you confirm or or deny basically what I thought what I thought I saw when we're looking at the influences on Where Shadows Fall. Yeah.
Well, okay. It actually started with a D20 modern game that I ran in like 2008 that never got to reach its conclusion because I lost half my players to somebody moving, two people changing their work schedule, etc., and suddenly we didn't have a group anymore. And I've thought about that campaign at various times over the years, considered reviving it with a variety of systems, and more recently decided that I wanted to use DCC for it. So that's kind of where it started.
Mhm.
But that plus stuff that I've been inspired by since then all kind of came together in a big stew pot to create this. So um, so book series like the Dresden Files certainly factored into it. Uh, TV shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the X Files and Warehouse 13, The Librarian, movies, all of that kind of played into it. Hellboy 2 into it. The whole idea of there being more going on in the world than what the average person is aware of. Some of it draws from conspiracy theory approaches, but I didn't want to go too heavy in that direction
Right.
as a base. Because my goal with this first zine was to set the stage and inspire you to take it in any direction you want it. So if you want to lean heavy into the conspiracy theories, the foundation is there. All you have to do is lean into it. If you want to go more into the X-Files approach, which is a branch on the conspiracy theory, the foundation is there, and you can go for it. If you want the hidden world of monsters via like Hellboy 2, or what was that? I always forget the name of it. It's an old comedy sci-fi cop show with a special precinct that hunted lynx. Anyway, the idea though being that the hidden world that only certain people are aware of, you can do that, and then of course you can take the approach of everybody's portraying otherwise normal humans that are aware of it. So you get some influences from like Beyond the Supernatural from Palladium Games, where everybody's basically a normal person but aware. Or you can play the odd creature. So there's some fantasy races available, and then in some expanded material I'm working on, you can go a step further and actually play the monster the way that you could in Nightlife or World of Darkness games, or various things like that. So
is there kind of like I mean, obviously you can take it in a lot of different directions, but
Mhm.
is there kind of like a default setting, kind of like this is the, or is this more your kind of what DCC does and provides you with the tools to kind of build your own, rather than kind of give you, like, okay, this is kind of this is the world that you're in.
So much like DCC, it hints at certain world elements that are kind of sort of considered defaults. So in DCC, you get certain hints with the language tables of the kinds of things that exist in the world, and the availability to play a dwarf, an elf, or a halfling gives you certain kind of hints. But it allows the fine details to be defined by the judge and the players. So same sort of thing here. I hint at a variety of things. I use terms like modern setting, but without defining dates. So your modern setting could be the Roaring Twenties,
Right.
or the fallout of Vietnam, or uh, uh, the wonderful 80s and early 90s that a lot of us remember probably a lot more fondly than what it was when we were actually experiencing them.
I was going to say then
Or
they deserve, but
right, or even set today. So modern is kind of flexible there. I make reference in the main zine to a variety of factions that then get fleshed out a little bit more in the second zine, but the fleshing out is just adding story seeds and rumors and notable NPCs, still giving you the flexibility to shape it how you want. So one of my goals was to heavily imply without clearly defining for the base set of zines. That way you can tailor it how you want. The next set of zines then is going to be focused on specific things. There's going to be one that's specifically horror themed that goes deeper into that, playing the monster and fighting the monster and all of that. One that's going to be science fiction themed. So more of your more of Jordy's influences will come in there, etc. So, but again, as a toolbox, because that's one of the great strengths of DCC, is that it's this amazing toolbox that inspires without forcing you into a particular direction.
Yeah. So what are the character classes like? Are they basically like reskin versions of the core DCC, or did you go in, different directions, something more, modern focused, or
There's some minor reskinning, but I think the only one that's pretty much a straight port is the tough.
Mhm.
is essentially a warrior, but with access to more modern weapons. Um, there's a tech whiz who can do lots of things with technology, either disassembling things, building things, tweaking things. So that works for your guy that mods your vehicle, or your hacker, or any number of things, depending on how you flavor it. The sneak borrows a little bit from the thief, but with some fun tweaks, like well, they move through shadows even better than the normal thief does.
Sure.
The mage is a trimmed down version of the wizard, because while magic exists in this setting, it's not as prevalent or as powerful. Because
Mhm.
I wanted it to really make an impact when it comes into play, without just being just a normal part of the game. If that
Right.
makes sense to you. So
Actually, but before we go on, is like, so how do you have corruption, or do you handle it in a slightly different way, or because that's always been the one of the cases. Like if magic and like monsters are socially subversive, if a guy who has a head that turns into like a frog, is going to kind of stand out
mhm.
in the crowd. So did you play around with the corruption mechanic?
Yeah, so corruption is still possible. Mercurial magic is less of a thing. Um, in this, as much as I love mercurial magic, I couldn't see a way of making it quite fit. So there's some tips if you want to include certain effects like that, to reference the Lankmar approach.
Hmm.
But by default, it's not there. Corruption's a little more subdued, but it still exists, because it can't be a DCC thing without some
Right.
corrupting forces of magic.
Right.
The other thing that I did, as much as I love the race as class approach for fantasy, um, I felt that I needed to divide those for a modern setting. And so I did separate them out. But instead of having clearly defined races, I created more like racial categories or templates. So your stout folk covers anything from your gnomes, your dwarves, your leprechauns, anything like that. And there's I think 6 different categories for that, so that you can get down to mechanically. All stout folk have the same modifications, but narratively and thematically, you can flavor it however you want.
Gotcha. All right. No. Well, I mean that sounds like as we were saying, it's an awesome toolbox that you can put into people's hands, and then they can build on from there.
Hmm.
But supposing they don't have time to to build on stuff, is there some sort of pre-written adventure that they might be able to go through, or
Yes. So everybody who backed the Kickstarter got a physical copy of this, and I'm going to be at PAX Unlimited in less than a month, and I'll bring the rest of the physical copies there. But the digital version of this is available, and there's this zero level funnel that's a pamphlet adventure that you can start with, and then soon to be available from Goodman Games are the 3 zines and a level 1 adventure, and it's a full module with pre-generated characters in the back and a copy of the character sheet.
so I mean, and as you're saying, you already intimated that you're going to have a book of factions coming out, but you also have basically kind of a monster manual deal as well. There's like a creature,
Yes.
yeah, so
Hmm.
creatures of shadow. So can you give us an example of some of the monsters you might find in there? I mean, are they to be expected, or are there any like weird kind of things out of your own brain pan?
Uh, so some things might seem somewhat familiar, like concepts that have been done before. Like for instance, the killer clown is not a new concept, but it's my take on it. But then I've got other things that just kind of popped into my head, like the balloon leech, or uh, the the necro spider was one that somebody got really excited about when they first read it. It's kind of looks like a spider, but it's not actually an arachnid. It's a type 1 demon, and kind of terrifying. The mage spider that actually hunts magic.
Oh,
and magical creatures. Yeah, some fun little things like that. Um, uh, a different take on the mimic uh, concept, but this one is specifically appears as usually like garbage cans and dumpsters
uh-huh,
because it's adapted to the modern world where that's easy feeding.
uh-huh.
You know, if you become a dumpster behind a restaurant, somebody feeds you daily.
Right.
There's no need to wait for adventurers to find you in some dungeon somewhere.
I played around in kind of like the urban fantasy, modern magic setting for the
Hmm.
game that I worked on a number of years ago, and kind of went through the same thing, like how do you adapt classic monsters for modern setting? And the one that I'm most proud of is like I had the Will-O-Wisp, and the Will-O-Wisp would like appear as like like live girl sign, like at the end of an alleyway or something like that. Anything that kind of like
Yes.
lure people down, like free booze or
Uh-huh.
and just like you go down there and then of course you never came out because I think that something like that. I love the trash can mimic that would
Hmm.
share the alleyway with the neon sign Will-O-Wisp.
Yes. I might have to get your permission to adapt that in the future.
You can have it as far as I'm concerned. I don't think the game's
Awesome.
been anywhere. I don't even know if it's still available. That's a freebie. So
I love it. Thank you.
so so obviously you this was all part of a Kickstarter, so that
Hmm.
you had you have this a bevy of stuff, all of which is available in some form or another, as you say, like the brochure funnel is only digital right now for not
Hmm.
backers or people who are not going to back Lex. But so what's we talked about it a little bit. You have some you have another kind of source books planned for that. What's like the next one planned out? Are we going into is the monster one coming next, or is the sci-fi one, or
Um, I'm actually working on three of them concurrently, uh, because I get an idea for something and it fits a little better over here, but then it makes me think of another thing that fits better in this one. So as I'm generating stuff, I'm kind of sorting it into the three piles that'll probably just kickstart together as a trio, like I did this first time around.
okay.
Um, but who knows? I might space them out. Depends on how things go a little further into the process. But right now, my ideas are coming kind of scattered throughout them.
Mhm.
But I've mapped out the goals. Now it's just filling in the different pieces. I'm sure you know what that's like when you've got
Yeah.
ideas for multiple things all at
Now,
once.
now the hard part, it's like,
Yeah,
so yeah, I don't envy you trying to work on three books at the same time. I know personally with me, it's like, I have to get my head into the right gear, and I have stripped gears, trying to jump from one project to another too fast. So yeah,
uh,
so
I that's three under this heading. That's not the only things I've got going on. I've got multiple adventures in the works for DCC and for Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland,
okay.
both, and then I have my regular show on alternating Friday nights on this channel. That ultimately will culminate in a new book of deities and patrons. So I got I got quite a bit happening right now.
All right. Well, it's good to be busy. It keeps you off the streets, right? And you don't get
Yeah,
attacked by trash mimics if you're not out on the streets, right? So
right, right. I don't follow any flashing neon signs that lead me into strange alleys.
right. But speaking of following, obviously people can pick this up through the Goodman Games website. Is there,
Mhm.
do you have a personal website? Do you have another
Yeah.
storefront
So
or social media anywhere for people to follow you?
yeah, I just dropped in the chat a link tree that'll uh, show you how to find my Patreon, my stuff at Goodman Games, and my itch.io, and my drive through RPG are all linked on there. And of course, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter as well. Just search for
And
my name.
and you're active on the Goodman Games Discord channel as well. That's
Yes,
right.
yes. The official and the dungeon crawlers fan server both. So
Okay.
you can definitely find me there.
All right, cool. Well, I wish you the best of luck getting the next Kickstarter written and together, and I hope that hopefully tonight people have or were unaware of where Shadows Fall and now are, and will pick some up through the Goodman Game website or wherever where they are to find you. So, all right, okay. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back with my last guest for tonight. So stick around for just a minute. Jeremy, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Michael.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. My last guest tonight, a person whose name you probably have heard before, considering he's been kicking around for a long time, Reverend Dak. Reverend Dak J. Ultimac, welcome to Maw of Mike.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me.
I don't
You
know
can
if
call
you've
me
been
old.
I don't know if you've been on Maw of Mike before or keep crawling. I know we've done one thing with you at least in the past, but
Yeah, I can't keep track.
probably back during the pandemic or whatever. But
Yeah,
welcome to the Maw of Mike. And I think it is safe to say that out of all the third-party creators who are on the show tonight, you are the one who's been doing this the longest, and
yeah,
that
probably.
that might extend to the entire third-party, community as well. So,
Yeah, yeah,
for those of you who do not know, Reverend Dan, you are the mind behind Crawl, the original DCC fanzine from.
yeah. The original DCC fanzine. I like to say it, it's funny, but yeah, I'm not the Stephen Newton and I are the first. We
Oh,
dropped our things at the same time. Yeah,
I
came
know
out the same day.
I remember when the third-party pool was much smaller.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I do remember that. So I know it was like back in the days, it was like you, Steve Newton, and
I felt like I knew everybody for sure.
right.
Yeah, yeah. We all knew each other, and then all of a sudden, like couple years later, it's like, oh my gosh, the shelves are like the section when you go to Gen Con, the section of third party stuff is just amazing. It's
Mhm.
just amazing. Like it's huge. It's bigger than any other third party section for any other game, period. Yeah,
I totally agree. I
nothing
mean,
like it. There's nothing like it. Yeah.
I remember when there was a time where I was able to I knew every third party release that was out there, and
Uh-huh.
I either had
Yeah.
it in some form or another.
Yeah.
And those days, no.
No way, it's impossible. I'm not made of money.
That's why I have people like you on the show. That's why they do entire show about third party.
Yeah.
So at least there are now three ones which I didn't necessarily know about an hour ago. So, but one that I did know about from the very beginning is Crawl. So we're going to talk about tonight Crawl number 13.
Yeah.
Lucky
Yeah.
number 13. Did you ever
Yeah.
think we would get that it would get this far, or
It was gonna come out. Like I never stopped making them. I have a bunch on deck, and I've written most like at least four more that are anywhere between half written to maybe almost completely written. Almost, I don't know, about 75% written. No art. They all need editing. There's a lot of work to be done, and I mean, the only reason 13 came out was because I knew I was going to Gen Con this year and I had to get it out. I
okay?
had to get it out for Gen Con because it was going to be my first time back in a while.
Mhm.
And so I just needed to get 13 fit. It was finished. It just needed to iron it out.
You were very kind to give me my copy in person,
Yeah.
in the hotel
Yeah.
room. So
Yeah.
I've been, I've had this. I'm not bragging, but I've had this since August. So I mean, but now
Yeah.
other people can get their filthy hands on it. So
Yeah.
I mean, I know the answer to this, but because most of them have some sort of central theme,
Yeah.
whether it be sailing or modern firearms or something. And
Right.
what can people find in Crawl number 13?
Yeah. Crawl number 13 is about how to run a death match, a player versus player adventure. Yeah. It One of the reasons it took so long is because I scrapped it like twice. Like scrapped it. And I was just didn't feel there was just so many things coming out at the same time and like pretty similar. Even Harley dropped like a death match thing. I'm like, man, he's done multiple now. Like it's like almost too late for me to do death match. But I don't know. I played a lot of Quake, which helped influence it a lot. And then I just kind of like I don't know, COVID kind of slowed me down a little bit too. But um just I don't know. I just had this like earlier this year, just something snapped and like I know how I want to write it. It's like so I just finally ironed it out. It
Hmm.
still probably needs some work, but I think that the guts of it is there.
Yeah, I mean, this
And it
is
was a lot of work. It's like 8,000 words.
it's interesting. What kind of stands out for me when I was looking through this is, first of all, so this this is point. This is it talks about point crawls and
Yeah.
then die. So so that's it right there. It's already kind of establishing itself its own niche away from like what Harley was doing with kind of like the the PvP players and stuff. And
Right.
and I love the subheader for an interactive conflict and adventure for 4 to 6
Yeah.
players and
Yeah.
characters of any level. So
Yeah.
how does how does the point crawl aspect of it work?
Point crawls are just easier. As a DM or a judge for decades, I've stumbled across point crawls, kind of a newer concept for uh, fantasy gaming, I guess you want to call it. But it's easier to run. It's just easier. Like the center page, the centerfold is like the whole dungeon can fit on the center page and the centerfold, and like you could run it just right there. And it's mostly made for. It just seems easier to run. What do we call it? Theater of mind. It's just when it's just a little blank space, it's easier to run it as theater of mind instead of
Mhm.
like, but if you dig, you'll find that there's normal maps in there too. And that's part of where I decided to add that later. And at first it was just going to be just point crawls and just because it was originally going to be just a
Mhm.
toolkit, just how to just run maps quickly, dynamically, randomly. Like when I was first playtesting this, I randomized the rooms and stuff, and
Okay.
I randomized a lot of it. Yeah, when I first ran it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, point crawls are one of those things that they're not to everybody's taste, but they're to
Right.
some people's really big taste. I mean, it depends on what your mentality is and kind of what you like to do prep. I mean, some people really do enjoy the kind of the simulationist aspect of gaming, where
Yeah.
you kind of get that feel of like, well,
Yeah,
this
you
room
can
is
do that too.
30 where other people like Gamus is like, all right, it's like you go down the hall and there's another one there, or up the
Yeah.
staircase or whatever. So
Yeah.
I know I had a player in one of my Labyrinth Lord games who like he would damn near he was going to draw the perfect map of every dungeon we went into and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and it gets a little wild trying to
Yeah.
because
She's got to roll for wandering monsters if he's sitting there drawing it accurately.
yeah. Well, I mean, he learned his lesson after I made sure it was like, okay, all right, your character's carrying the map, right? And then, one
Yeah.
time his character died and, they all fled the dungeon. They left his body behind. And
Yeah.
I literally reached across the table and took the map that he said and tore it up and said, you lost this map. You don't have it anymore. Your guy got eaten by kobolds, so I
Yeah.
think you crestfallen.
Yeah.
But, if you want to play simulationist, you gotta play simulationist, right?
Yeah, totally.
So,
Which I can do too. I can do that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so obviously you're saying it's like you have a lot of these kind of in mind and everything, and there was kind of a long gap between number 12 and number 13. So
Yeah.
obviously that you're kind of like you are not you're not beholden to any sort of internal time schedule. This is basically just like when
Yeah.
you feel like doing something or
Yeah.
when you're going to a major convention.
Yeah. Yeah. It's lack
to
of discipline is what it is.
so yeah, I mean, but still, I mean, despite that, I mean, Crawl remains one of the more popular zines out there. Every time people, in the last 3 years, we've had a lot of influence of, people are discovering DCC for the first time, and
Yeah.
when they're on social media or something, their Facebook, DCC rock group or something like, does anybody have rules for, pirate ships or something, or guns or something? Usually the response is check out Crawl number whatever,
Yeah.
and so it is a useful tool to the community and has been around for
Yeah.
kind of almost evergreen.
Yeah. And that's how it started. I like the stuff that I wrote or stuff that people contributed were basically things that I felt like I wanted or needed. Basically, it's
Hmm.
just like the
And
firearms. It's like there's no guns in DCC. I'm going to make some guns. Why not?
right, and I think the kind of the ongoing theme, which has gone through the entire show tonight, is the way to do like a really good third party stuff is write about the stuff that either that inspires you or the stuff you're interested in or the stuff that you want to talk about, rather than like, oh, I think there's somebody should be writing the Care Bear Crawl classics or something. I'm sure there's a niche
Mhm.
for that or anything. If you're really into Care Bears, then by all means do it. But if you're trying to make a buck off of it, I mean, first of all, you're a third party publisher in the role playing game industry, so there's no money anyway. Like,
Yep.
so, um, so So in the now more than 10 years since you've been doing crawl, believe it or not,
Yeah.
you have any hard-earned advice? You have anything that you've kind of picked up that you might want to share? I mean, we got still two third-party publishers in the green room.
Yeah.
We know who's going to be watching this in the future. What have you learned?
I the only advice I have is just do it. Just make it. Just like write it down and just make it. Because you can always do new versions, you know? It's you're never stuck with the one you make. You could always revise it and you could always revise it again. And you
Mhm.
could always revise it again and add more art, new art, or change the art. Fix the things that you didn't like before. You could always do that. Like especially in zines, especially digitally. It's and because most of the stuff is digital these days.
Mhm.
And people are okay if a second edition comes out. People are okay when a fifth edition comes out. Yeah, but yeah, the big thing is just make something. It's easy to make stuff that doesn't exist that you can solve. If you like, I have a solution for this thing that doesn't exist. If you can
Mhm.
do that, then that's step one, and just start writing it down.
Right.
There's artists that'll help you. And if you
Mhm.
don't know how to do layout, there's like I could do all this stuff by myself, except for the art. I don't draw. Even though I went to art school, I just I I, I haven't tried, But
Right.
I get an editor. He's one of my players. He's got English major. Like you're doing the editing.
Worst
Yeah.
worst kind. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I have always been very much a proponent of if you are a creative person, and even if you just want to do kind of this, not make a living out of it, but at least contribute to something, the way to do it is to get your stuff out there. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be polished,
It's super easy. Yeah.
because I mean, charge what you think it's worth, and if you think it's worth is like nothing just to get
Yeah.
your work out there, then do it. But if you
Yeah.
think it's worth something, put the effort into it and do that
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it should be, the big goal is to produce something and put it out there.
Yeah. It's being creative, creating
Mm.
something. Yeah. Someone will find it useful. If you find it useful, someone will too. Someone else will.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, I think, if there's something you like, I mean, that's the one of the few good things about the internet these days. I mean, if there's something that you are into, chances are someone somewhere else is also into the same weird stuff that
Yeah.
you're going to be. Where
Yeah.
that wasn't the case when we were talking about like the 80s or the 90s,
Right.
where like I'm really into this and you were the only person in your
Yeah.
town that, and there was no way that you're ever going to get anybody to roll with your crazy, role playing game idea or your band or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to be a creative, but the reality is just do it. Just do it.
It is. It is. Do you have anything to, sneak for crawl number 14, or is still,
I I could tell you what crawl number 14 is. Crawl number 14 is going to be my take on a downtime
okay.
thing and a little bit of domain stuff maybe. It all works together. And so it's going to be my take on it. And it's actually inspired by a little game called Rat Snake.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm basically adding a gambling mechanic to your downtime, and that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds cool. I look
Yeah.
forward to seeing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. You could use all your regular downtime tables, your failed whatever,
Mhm.
or your carousing tables. You could use any of your own stuff, but it's just like an extra mechanic I'm putting in there, and then I'm gonna put a bunch of examples and stuff. And then the main stuff is also another thing I'm doing. But yeah, that's 14.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's about 70% written.
Oh, all right.
It's been for about 3 years. Yeah, I just have to just gotta iron it out. I got to get my artist to answer his emails. That's a big step right there.
Ah, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I won't put the thumb screws to you and try to get a date for you, but I do appreciate you coming on the show and
Oh
talking
yeah.
about number 13 and your experiences, in the now
Yeah.
more than a decade. Believe it or not,
Crazy.
I
It's
remember when we were a
crazy.
lot younger, and
Yeah.
but all right, man. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, we used to share hotel rooms. It's like Jack and I
That's
were
good.
like permanent hotel,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
right.
All
All
right.
right. Well, Dak, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm gonna going to jump off, and I'll be right back and dump a whole lot of information on you watch at home about what's coming up. So stick around. We'll wrap things up. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in for the November episode of the Mall of Mike. I hope you have enjoyed my three guests, and I hope that some of the stuff they've talked about has kind of piqued your interest, and you'll be checking this stuff out. I know I certainly will be. But so here's what's happening for November. Things to look forward to, because strangely enough, it's November. And I think we're going to get into a busy part of the season for some reason. I think there's some sort of event coming up in the next 2 months or something, which is going to impact people's lives. So speaking of which, if you've been following Goodman Games for a while, you know every year we have our holiday season sale. Yes, that is our HAUL-IDAY, our holiday, and that is our kind of our Black Friday sale. So if you've been waiting to pick anything up, and or, if you've been looking on the web store and say, I want to get one of these, I advise hold off just a little bit longer, because looks like Friday, maybe the Friday before Thanksgiving, we might be making some announcements and stuff. So start plotting your shopping cart now. We'll be having that discounts on a lot of stuff. Perfect time to shop for yourself, to shop for your DCC loving friends, for your people who love DCC but don't know it yet, and definitely need a brand new 10th printing rulebook under the tree this year, or wherever. So that is kind of the big thing which is going on the web store. Well, there's going to be plenty of stuff to pick up. This week we have a new release called Skate Wizards. So Skate Wizards is going to be awesome. For those of you who are unaware of it, you should be aware of it now, because it is everything it sounds like and more. It has a special thanks to Mr. Harley Stroh, our own resident skate wizard, who has broken more bones being a skate wizard than some people have had hot meals. So that is coming up. Also on the pike is going to be DC Dungeon Crawl Classic Dying Earth #9, the Time Tempest at the Nameless Rose. I'm sorry. That is written by Julian Burnick. That is our latest dive into the world of Jack Vance Dying Earth. It's a heck of a lot of fun adventure. I've had a lot of fun kind of watching it develop and working with Julian. It's got time travel. It's got, basically it takes place around the same inn, but a whole bunch of different times. So it's never the same place twice. So it's going to be a lot of fun. That one, I believe that one's actually shipping this next week, if it's not already out. I don't know what Molon and Phelan have been up to in the warehouse. I just keep seeing people getting stickers from them, so it's out there. So yes. So also we've got some third-party releases that I couldn't get on the show because I only got an hour. So we've got Marvels of the Multiverse coming up. We got Phage from Below, which is going to be for a MCC adventure, and we have the Technomancer of Candy Mountain. Those are all going to be available on the Goodman Games website, web store, and right there, Multiverse, Phage from Below for MCC, Technomancer, Candy Mountain. You can't go wrong with any of that. So that's going to be good. Speaking of new beginnings, right now on the bundle of holding, there is a 0 level funnel bundle. So if you are looking to get your hands on some digital copies of some great ways to kick off a new DCC campaign, that's the place to go. They have not only stuff by Goodman Games, but we also have third-party releases from Thick Skull Adventures, from Mystic Bull Games, Gaming Honors, Purple Duck Games, and the Keep Studios. So depending on how much you give to the bundle of holding, you can get the kind of the Goodman Games, the DC, the third party stuff, whole bunch of stuff. Keep you running campaigns for years to come. I think this was kind of mentioned on the Facebook page today, but I was talking with Dak. Believe it or not, this has been we're more than 10 years into DCC, and a couple of years in, we started working with a little company called Impact Miniatures, and they have been producing DCC compatible dice for now 10 years. This is their 10th anniversary coming up. So we are going to be having a sale on the Goodman Games web store and the Impact Miniatures, both $10 off on dice sets. That begins November 10th. Get it? 10th. The only way we could have done it better if we had planned this so that they first started doing things in October, because then it could be the 10th. So, but we weren't thinking back then. We were barely. I remember the first Gen Con, everybody was like, "Where do you get these weird dice?" And we're like, "I don't know." So go find Coppola. Go see what they got. So that is going to be coming up. So new dice, put stocking stuffer, anything, throw them at the cops when you're trying to escape from the bank heist. They'll slip on it. I'm not, we're not condoning, bank heist publicly. But so anyway, so that is kind of what's going on in the physical realm. For those of you who are overseas, and I'm talking not only the UK, but also the EU, some good news coming up. For the UK store, there's going to be select third-party publishing bundles, which are going to be on peering them. So those should be coming soon. So if you are on the other side of the pond and are looking to get some wonderful third-party stuff, I can't say for sure if any of the people who are here on the show tonight is going to have stuff in that bundle. Shipping stuff, they don't let me know stuff. They don't, ever since the incident with the forklift, they don't let me anywhere near the warehouse. So I don't know what's going on. But hopefully we have some of their stuff. And if not, this is going to be the start of a good thing. So more third-party stuff will be available in the UK. And if you are not in the UK, we are currently working to expand shipping into, I believe it's 5 other EU countries right now. There's going to be more to come about that. We're kind of waiting for the ink to dry on certain contracts and making things work out. But we are doing our part to make Goodman Games material more accessible to those of you who do not live here in the US. It's a slow process, but we're making steps forward today. Now, if you are a fan of virtual tabletops and you are a fan of Foundry, I got some other good news for you as well, because coming up this month, you are going to be able to get through for Foundry. You're going to get to DCC Annual #1. He says #1 like there's a #2. But anyway, so you're going to get DCC Annual #1 on Foundry, DCC number 72, that's Beyond the Black Gate, and DCC number 76, Colossus Arise. So it's 2 great Harley Stroh adventures. Perfect. Everything you need to be running it on Foundry. Awesome. Can't wait to see those. And last but not least, next week, is it next week? Yeah, November 15th. It is I think it's going to be the third. I think it's the third, or perhaps, I don't know, that COVID screwed me up. But anyway, it's the annual Goodies Awards, where we take time here at Goodman Games to acknowledge and honor those people who have gone above and beyond to make the Goodman Games community, what it is, and continue to bring a lot of good positive energy to it, do amazing things, whether that's, running games, or that, just being creative and, do whatever. But so today is the last day to nominate. So if you haven't done so and there's somebody you think deserves a goodie, please do that on this Monday. If you're listening to this after the fact, too late. But do turn in next Wednesday to check it out and see who gets to go home with a kind of what looks like a belt buckle around around on a ribbon. It's really awesome. So that's it for now. Tomorrow, 7:30 Eastern Time, is the return to the Purple Planet. It's going to be Harley Stroh and I talking about the weird, crazy monsters that you encounter on the Purple Planet. So if you're not doing any, it's 7:30. Do tune in. Check that with Harley and I. Always good to have Harley talk about it. So it's going to be awesome. And I think that does it. I think we are done for November. So again, a big thanks to my guest for being on the show tonight. And I will be back next month. Until then, stay awesome.